Have you ever been driving down the road and seen a vehicle that has a mud flap on it and there's kind of a rust hue or a line behind the mud flap, or there's a big hole where the mud flap was? Well, what I'm going to do is show you how I do my best to prevent me from causing that to happen. Mud flaps are supposed to keep your vehicle from getting chipped up and rusting. You don't want to cause a problem when you're putting them on. There are lots of different styles of mud flaps. There's mud flaps that are molded to fit the side of the vehicle. There are mud flaps that go on flat. And in some cases, you can get a mud flap that is considered a no-drill mud flap. Now, in this case, I mean, you could probably 3M tape one on. I don't know how well those would last. I've never actually used those. But if you know something about that, you can drop that in the comments. What this has is there's no inner fender liner. There's no anything in here that we can actually attach screws to in existing holes to put the mud flap on. So in this case, we have to drill holes to install the mud flaps. On the front of the truck, however, I'll take you up there and show you. On the front here, you can see we have screws and we have some push pin clips. Now, this is going to be very close to a no drill install, except if we take this new mud flap and we look at it and we are to fit it into place, one of the holes here doesn't have anything. So we're going to have to make a hole there. And this is where I'm going to show you what I want to do. And we'll take a look at how these clips are in to prevent the factory vehicle from rusting. Now, these push clips on this particular mud flap, we are not going to be reusing these, but what you need to do, there's all sorts of different kinds on different manufacturers, but you pull the middle out on these ones and then they just come out. Not a huge deal. A little bit of garbage in behind, not bad. Now, from the factory, they have a hole that's painted and then they install this clip in here to prevent rust from happening. So if you see, all of these holes that are inside there are painted really well, and that is going to protect from rusting. What rust is metal. When it is exposed to oxygen, it actually attacks it, oxidates it, and that's what rust is. If we add road salt and things that change the pH of it, it can accelerate the process huge. And so you always want to prevent that from happening. The next thing I'm going to do is follow the instructions for whatever vehicle you have and take and line up where the mud flap is supposed to be, and then this is the hole I have to drill. So I'm going to mark it out and drill the hole, and that's the important step that I want to show you. So after this hole is drilled, we'll take a look at the next step. Okay, what the instructions say now is to, once it's marked, you drill it out and you thread a screw into that hole. Well, that's not what we're going to choose today. So what's done here is, first of all, I do not want to touch the factory piece because I don't want to mess the paint up underneath it. But in these ones down here, you can see that there's kind of some bubbles and some gray paint around it. Well, what I've done is I've taken these, well, they're a Rivnut or a nutsert. Basically, it's a threaded piece that rivets into a hole. And what I'm choosing to do is use an epoxy primer. And it's a zinc-rich epoxy. And I have drilled the hole out that this insert will go into. But inside of here, there is going to be, it's gone through this layer of metal and this layer of metal. So there's going to be burrs in there and whatever. So what I need to do now is I'm going to take a file, and I'll get the camera out of the way so I can actually do it. And I'm going to file that hole up really nice. and then we'll look at the next step. Okay, I've filed it up really nice, and I have put tape around so I don't have some overspray. I want to hold it fairly close, and I'm okay with it being very thick in there. I have no problem with that. All right, I have my Rivnut tool and I have the insert threaded onto it. And what I want to do is I want to take and give it a real thick coating of this. I want it to be runny, gooey, wet. Now the idea is none of this is dry, so what I want to do is put this all in there nice and fluid and wet. Oh, wow. Okay, and squish that insert in there really good. And I'm going to let that all dry up. And before it dries on your tool, you want to take and wipe that off. Before we move forward with any of the rest of this, we'll let that dry up. Okay, quick note. This vehicle has some miles on it, obviously, and it was pretty rock chipped in here. So I took and wax and greased this, cleaned it with Automotive body cleaner, then touched up all of the little rock chips, and then this particular liner come with a paint protection film. To put that on, I spray it with soapy water, move it around to where it needs it be, squeegee it out, and it is time to bolt the mud flap on. So I'll get that on. We'll take a look at what it looks like. Now the inserts I'm using, I believe they're called zinc dichromate. I am almost certain I'm saying that wrong. Basically what they are is they are supposed to be something that when they're squished in here, they have a coating on that will not rust. So yeah, I just want to make sure that nothing rusts. And then that brings me to the next thing, is the hardware I'm using. So this is the factory bolt. And the reason I use the factory bolt is the aftermarket stuff that come with the mud flaps that's supposed to go into a factory piece. It's not the same thread. So you're going to end up having it where it's trying to spin that. I wish that didn't have a bulge in it, but maybe we'll heat it up after. I'm going to have to turn the wheel to get this one tightened. But anyways, the hardware I'm using is Nutserts or Rivnuts, and they're 1024. I have stainless steel machine screws, and these are 1024 by 3/4 with a stainless fender washer. So the factory bolt and then these stainless screws. So I'll turn the wheel, get this all tightened, and then I have 3 more mud flaps to get on this thing. So lots of drilling, prepping, painting, and we'll take a look at what this thing looks like in the end. Well, I'm super pleased at how these mud flaps look on this truck, but I'm even more pleased that I know I did the best I could to prevent this truck from becoming a rust bucket. So thanks so much for watching. Hopefully this helps you with ideas on your project to keep it alive for a long period of time. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.